Welcome back, you filthy exiles. I've sort of had, obviously, I was trying to play last Epoch, and no luck there because servers have just completely bricked. And that's for a very obvious reason if we look at the player numbers. So, just looking at the player numbers as they are right now, they've just spiked 223,000. If we refresh this page, 224.2 thousand and still rising. Someone on the forums posted up this incline chart. So basically what we can see here is like player numbers were still going up and up and up and up. Like it's a steep increase. So yeah, we're at 224,000 players, which is a 668.4% gain in the average player base, right? So the average player base up until this point has been, around the, it's been around the, 6,000 to, I guess, 9,000 range in the highs and lows on average. And then they basically had this server dump out to hit 224,000 players as of the fourth day. So obviously that's why the servers are completely bricking themselves and we're experiencing what we're experiencing. And this is just wild. Like looking at this comparatively, this is Path of Exile. So 209,000 was their all-time peak. Now they have an off Steam client as well, which is a little different in this scenario. In the defense of 11th hour games, like when we hit this peak with Path of Exile, I can't remember which league it was, we had like item caching issues, all sorts of stuff like that. There were always server dropouts, things like that. But GGG has sort of developed it over the years, so they fix it within like, I think the worst was like 6 hours. One league, 6 to 8 hours within one league launch. But that being said, like, this is just trumping again, like it's just crept over the top of Path of Exile's launch. And I can only surmise here, like, the nature of Last Epoch is simply that it's like that game that sits perfectly in the middle of where Path of Exile is really hardcore and D3 is not hardcore, it's an arcade ARPG, and like this game sits like square in the middle and it just gets the perfect blend of each market. And so that's why this is happening. Like if we have a think back to like D4 when that first came out, right? And D4 is just a shadow of what its promise was to be. I think it hit like they were reporting like numbers of up to like 1 million or something like that. But bearing in mind, this company's a really small company, and it was never equipped to sort of deal with this. And we'll talk about that soon because they did make a post around this. Whereas Diablo 4 is owned by Blizzard, and that's a multi-million-dollar company where there really is no excuse for network failures and dropouts and things like that. That being said, like what's happening right now with Last Epoch is probably going to continue to get worse into the next days because I don't think the game was actually designed in a way that allowed for it to handle this type of player base, and it may actually require them to offload some cash that they've earned from the 1 mil sales that they advertised to basically fund some pretty ready mix roughshod dev work to get the servers back up and running. But let's have a look and see what happened in their initial planning that sort of led to where we're at now. So this post is off the Reddit from 4 days ago, and what's really interesting is like this is from Moxja 200, which what I can see is one of the devs at 11th hour, and it's not like they didn't do any initial testing to test load or I guess to load balance in this scenario. So he sort of reads through here. We've scaled testing for months with third parties, consultants, help of infra providers, and our own backend. We have the ability to scale servers quickly, have reserved a large amount of bare metal machines, and do not have a maximum spend for cloud overflow. It's all elastic. And see, this is part of the issue that we will delve into to see if we can find some further information about this. From the extent of testing we've done, unless we do have a really crazy turnout, and the funny thing is that is exactly what happened, we should be stable, and that is what hasn't happened. It's not lost on us that many larger companies than us have had issues at launch, though. Great example, Diablo 4 had massive issues at launch, or maybe not at launch, they had initial issues at launch, but they had massive issues when they first released D4 as like an early access title for those who paid for it. We're optimistic, and if there are issues, it certainly won't be for lack of effort spent or ignorance to the importance of launch day. Like, the thing about this is they did do testing. They did actually do the DD. Like, they did do the work to make sure that, they could handle player load. And the thing is, like, I don't think they knew that there was ever going to be an estimate where they broke. I didn't think that they were ever anticipating to get the player numbers that walked in the door that they've seen in the last 4 days. That being said, if they had no ceiling, they're coming back and they're saying they do not have a maximum spend, so money's not an issue. And if it's all elastic, okay, then, they should have had a contingency for what could go wrong in this situation. And it's sort of, partly it's not their fault, but it's also still their fault because they should have went, okay, well, what if, like, worst case scenario happens and we completely get inundated the way that we've seen, like 242,000 players walk in the door. What do we do then? Like, what's our mob on how quickly we can deploy a continuity solution to be able to deal with this problem? They didn't really I don't think they anticipated that or didn't plan that far, and that would have been prudent in their judgment at this stage. Just especially off of the basis of, like, how badly Diablo 4 is being perceived by the market. Somebody probably should have asked the question, well, maybe we're not anticipating what's actually ahead of us, and we should put some more thinking into, or more thought into, the what happens if we have 500,000 players. I assume this will keep going up at this stage based on what we can see. Okay, so we come to the day one recap. So this is from Moxjet. So he's like, hello everyone, I wanted to share some thoughts and information about the launch. Even though we felt we were prepared, and as we discussed, like they were legitimate in their comments about this, and came in with a high level of confidence. Even feeling that we over prepared, we were shown that in a real world situation, things can go wrong that just simply do not that do not occur in simulated testing, and this is pretty normal for dev, right? Generally, 9 out of 10 projects you deploy with ICT deployment or anything of that nature, they don't work. Like, initially, you always have problems, and you can plan as much contingency as you want, and it just won't happen. Things will go to shit, basically. Now, you can see from the post I wrote yesterday about this that has, of course, aged like milk. Yeah, so their prep post is, as we just ran through, basically worth nothing. But I still think it's informative to give insights into our feelings the day before launch. So they go, within 20 minutes of launch, 150,000 people joined us, and we've confirmed that with player numbers. So yeah, they legit just got swamped. Now they're thrilled, obviously, because that's a really good result for a small dev company. This did mean that all of our scale testing efforts were immediately put to the test, and unfortunately, a service failed in a way that we did not suspect, and we immediately went to work to investigate and resolve. Many of the people played offline, and this didn't bother them, but many of the people want to play online. Obviously, that's basically the gist, right? Like, definitely, like, I wanted to play online. Launch day, we had our senior engineers, back-end team, leadership, infrastructure, services provider in the war room, which is just a silly name for Zoom Google call where we monitor and address issues that crop up. One thing I wanted to ensure today is that if we did have problems, which we did, that we would stay as communicative with all of you as possible. Now, Path of Exile's devs, Grinding Gear Games, learnt this the hard way. And so they did exactly the same thing. Diablo 4 doesn't do this. They just don't tell you anything, and they have a stupid campfire where they tell you a completely different narrative. So at least these guys are addressing the problem and the elephant in the room. Like, that should be respected. I've tried hard to do this by keeping a log of updates and posting every 15 to 30 minutes in the Discord, and we'll have a look at the Discord next. I've been waiting on the other side of this, where as a player, I just wanted communication, any communication on what is going on. So he's basically saying here that they're keen to stay transparent, and that's the best PR that they could possibly aim for. Now, he's also got here, tomorrow as we aim to deploy another hotfix, reduce the too often seen transition times being longer than they should, and fix any other issues that crop up. I'll be keeping everyone up to date with a log, which is on their Discord. Okay, so this is the official Discord. So basically, they've got a post up here. This is at 8:38 this morning. With our latest patch, we saw a considerable uptick in matchmaking transitions between non-town zones for solo players, and overall the solo player experience continues to improve. I can attest to this. This was happening. This was work throughout the day. It was okay. It was actually working really well. That's also when American players go to bed and Australian players are awake because we're on the other side of the world. Then we sort of progress through to 1033. They're noticing more stability, so they're working at that at the end of the day. Now they've posted up at 1:18 a.m., which is just like a few minutes ago. Hello everyone, our engineers are working to improve online stability. We'll keep you posted when things have gotten better. So basically, the load keeps increasing. It's like if a dam wall breaks, right? The best example here is if a dam wall breaks and you're trying to close off that water, and what's happening is people keep flooding through the dam wall, and as much as they're trying to deploy fixes, they just can't keep up with the load, is what I'm surmising at this stage. And then they've sort of reduced off their communications at this stage. Understandably, for anyone who's worked in help desk, if you're calling the help desk 24/7, help desk can't fix your problem, right? And that's what's basically happening here. So what does all this mean? Well, it just means people just need to stay calm, right? It's just a game. At the end of the day, there are plenty of other games out there you could play in the interim, or load up Minesweeper or Solitaire while you're waiting between zones. Easy to say. I think at the end of the day, people need to just chill out. Like we'll have a look at some of the angry posts on Steam very shortly. Reading some of them, people are getting furious and whatnot about load times and yada yada yada. The reality is, like, yep, it was a bad launch. It's like, yeah, they're only going to have one 1.0 launch, and then beyond that point, you're going up, hill, and then you finally get to the point where things are going to get better. I don't think this game deserves any ire from people basically calling out saying it's a shit game, rah rah rah. The servers are bad, etc. etc. Now, to put this in context, let's talk about the game Wolcen, which is a really good example of where things go really badly. Here's the thread on Wolcen, which has inevitably come up as part of the discussions around last Epoch, as was inevitable. And we can see like what happened to Wolcen on launch. Now, I played Wolcen on launch, and what's happening with last Epoch now is not what happened with Wolcen. To give you an idea with Wolcen, the skill tree system, there were nodes on the tree where the input numbers were wrong. Like, that's how ridiculously bad at attention to detail the devs were on Wolcen, right? Now, people are chiming in here and basically going, Wolcen is and was just a bad game. Last Epoch, a good game with some minor issues. I agree with that comment here. Wolcen was a technical mess for ages, not just crashes and performance. Most of them passive tree did nothing, and yep, passive tree was worthless. Like, you could rotate in 3 directions. It was a cool idea. Didn't do anything. Like, it was just bad. And then going down further, there's a lot of positivity here as an overall. Like, Wolcen was just, this is more detail. Failed launch does impact sales. Look, the moral of the story, Wolcen is this is not a repeat of the Wolcen scenario. So from memory, the Wolcen scenario basically played out where, we came in, it was like days and days and days and days and days, and this was like 5 years ago now. The servers were like not even close to being up for days. Like, the only way that you could play Wolcen on day 1 through to like the first week was logging in through offline mode. And then beyond that, the mechanics within the game were busted. It had no end game whatsoever. So like, Last Epoch has like the corruption system and everything. Like, that's established in the game already. That's not an issue. As far as the builds and build diversity, fantastic in Last Epoch. It's it's great. It's accessible. There's plenty of gear. There's cool uniques. Everything else. There's a crafting system that's been well thought out. Trading system, auction house system, all the rest of it. It's really good. Wolcen had none of this. So this is not a repeat scenario of Wolcen. I think this is just a little bit of rocky road they need to get past, which they will get past, and by the end of it, everything will be fine. I'd probably say in a few days it'll be fine, but it is going to take some elbow grease from 11th Hour Games to sort it out. Anyway, fingers crossed things get better over the next few days. Server side, I'm keen to get into the game. I've got a second build on the run. The only disappointing thing right now is it does look like people are starting to tank the Metacritic score on Last Epoch. So what I'd say is give it the benefit of the doubt. It's a fantastic game with some server issues on day 1, 2, 3, and 4. But you know what? Once those are ironed out, it's going to be a great game. And might actually be a game that I'll play a lot more often than what I have played in the past. But yeah. Anyway, until next time, don't forget to like and sub to the channel. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the description. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. And hopefully when the servers are a little bit more stable. Alright, have a good one. Bye.